I'll try to open the next one. Aha. Is your screen changed?
Yes.
All right.
It's changed.
Okay, great. Let's see if I can...
How much time do you want for this, Liz?
How late are we going? 8:30?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll zoom through then. So
we're open to push it a little beyond 8:30 if you want.
Okay. Well, I'll really zoom through here. And I'll start with this slide. This is the third slide. The Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI, RGGI, already involves 10 states. So all of these states in green have been already, they're already in RGGI. And RGGI is the nation's oldest carbon market. There are, it's been in existence for 10 years. 2 more states, Pennsylvania and Virginia, are planning to join. And Virginia will do it through legislation. They're joining, I believe, on July 1st is the schedule. And Pennsylvania is not going to use legislation. We're doing it administratively. So RGGI is a cap and invest program. And so it has the same elements as a cap and trade program, but it adds one more element. So the first thing I should say is really not in one of these boxes, but RGGI caps emissions. So when a state joins RGGI, it establishes a cap, and that limits future emissions. The cap comes down 3% every year. So the cap is lowered every year. So every year you've got to clean up your system, basically. And RGGI only covers the electricity generation sector. It is not economy-wide. So it does not cover transportation. It does not cover natural gas heating. It just covers electricity generation. And it requires fossil fuel generators who are emitting CO2 to purchase allowances in order to continue to pollute. An allowance, it requires for every 1 megawatt of power, you have to buy 1 allowance. Allowances are now trading in the RGGI market for $5.61. So if you produce a ton of CO2 emissions, you have to pay $5.61. And every year, the number of allowances comes down by 3%. So if you're a heavy emitter, let's say you're a coal-fired power plant, and you're having trouble reducing your own emissions, you can buy emissions in the auction, in the RGGI auction, from a generator who has decided to retire his coal plant and replace his system with solar. So he's got a lot of allowances to trade, and you can buy his allowances. So the cap is established. The trade part is within the market. So again, it's already 10 states, it's going to be 12. So you can trade within that RGGI market. And the invest part of this is that the way that the allowances are sold is through a public auction. This auction happens every 6 months, so twice a year. The allowance proceeds come to the states, and the states invest those proceeds. So that's the investment part. And it works a little differently, a little bit differently in every state. So this is just a simple idea here, is to cap the carbon emissions, convert each ton to an allowance, and every state has an allowance budget, an emissions budget. So in Pennsylvania, in New Jersey, I'll take New Jersey first. In New Jersey, you all were in RGGI very early, and then Christie pulled you out. Your current governor, Phil Murphy, has brought you back in. So you are already back in to RGGI. The previous governor, Christie, frankly, the only thing he did by pulling you out was to cause you to lose revenue. So you forfeited revenue during the period of time that Christie had pulled you out of the market. Now that you're back in, you'll have much more revenue to invest in clean energy and other things that are important to the state. I'm not going to go into this. Let me just say, I don't have a really good slide. These are not my slides. These slides belong to the Department of Environmental Protection, and they don't have a really good slide to cover what I want to tell you, which is really key. Go back here. All right. So actually, I'm going to go. I hope I'm not going to make you all dizzy here with zooming around. But let me go back to this map. So again, there are currently 10 states in RGGI. Virginia and Pennsylvania are coming in. Pennsylvania has more carbon in the electricity generation sector than all the other RGGI states combined. So Pennsylvania by itself generates 81 million tons of carbon, CO2 emissions, in the electricity sector every year. So when we convert that, once that's capped, and we're converting each of those tons to an allowance, we're going to exempt, Pennsylvania plans to exempt some forms of carbon. So what they're estimating is that we will have between $300 and $400 million every year from RGGI proceeds, RGGI allowance auction proceeds, to invest in clean energy. And as I mentioned earlier, we're not doing this legislatively because, as I mentioned previously, both of our chambers are held by Republicans, and there's just no chance that we can get this through the legislature. So this is being done administratively by the governor, and we're doing it on the basis of the Clean Air Quality Act. And in Pennsylvania, all proceeds from implementing that act require investment in cleaning our air. So 100% of the RGGI auction proceeds must be reinvested in cleaning our air. So they must be invested in energy efficiency, renewable energy, carbon sequestration, and other similar activities. So Pennsylvania, moving from where we are today to investing $300 to $400 million a year in clean energy is an absolute game changer. So the price of carbon is still extremely low. Again, 1 ton of carbon dioxide in Pennsylvania trades for $5.61. There is one other carbon market in the United States. It's in California, and it also involves a number of provinces in Canada. It's called the Western Initiative, Western Carbon Initiative, WCI, or the California market. It's different than RGGI because it is economy-wide, so it covers all carbon. Interestingly, Massachusetts has just passed a state law that in addition to participating in RGGI, they will now have an economy-wide market. And that will enable Massachusetts to trade with California. So their market is going to be constructed so that it's very similar to California. So the price in California for carbon is $17 a ton. Still very low, but better than $5.61. But just to give you a sense of the proportions here, this RGGI is not by itself sufficient to get us to where we need to be in terms of reducing our carbon emissions, but RGGI is key because it creates, for several reasons, it creates a market for carbon, and it essentially, the revenues that RGGI produces from allowance auction proceeds must be reinvested in clean energy. That is the way that RGGI reduces emissions. So it reduces emissions both by lowering the cap, but it also reduces emissions by investing heavily and strategically in clean energy. So again, RGGI is not sufficient by itself, but it is a vital platform that creates unification across multiple strategies that states are using to reduce their emissions. So does that make sense to people? Have I confused you?
Yes.
No, it was great, Liz. I have a question. You maybe said this and I just didn't catch it. So if you're in the RGGI initiative,
Mhm.
is the price the same for every state within the initiative?
Yes.
Or does each state set its own?
No. The price is set by the auction.
Okay.
And the way the auction works is these states have created an entity called RGGI Inc. It's a nonprofit entity that manages the auction.
Mm-hmm.
And Pennsylvania, the regulations that we're writing in PA will enable Pennsylvania to use RGGI's auction, the RGGI Inc. auction,
Mm-hmm.
or in the future, there could be some situation where Pennsylvania would want to run its own auction. But frankly, RGGI Inc. is a highly, highly competent entity, and they've been managing this market extremely well. So the auction sets the price. RGGI is constructed so that it has a price floor, and frankly, $5 is the bottom. So it cannot go below $5. And it also has a price ceiling so that for whatever reason, the price fluctuations cannot be too great. So RGGI, these 10 states just came together and decided that they would reduce the ceiling. They would drop the ceiling. They would drop the ceiling of total carbon permitted in RGGI. So the reductions in these RGGI states, the carbon reductions have been faster than anticipated for the two reasons, and also because a lot of these coal-fired power plants have been replaced increasingly with natural gas, and that does reduce emissions somewhat. So the movement from coal to gas, but frankly, the investment in energy efficiency and clean energy has been more important. So those two reasons, carbon emissions in New England have been coming down more rapidly than expected. So RGGI Inc. lowered the total cap. So RGGI Inc., the states come together to agree and decide on big changes in their policy, but that happens on a regular basis.
Liz, your time is running low. It's
Sure.
8:22.
Great. Any other questions?
I have one more question.
Sure.
If federal carbon pricing legislation passes, will that have any effect on the regional initiative?
Yes, and that is certainly anticipated. We expect, frankly, if the clean power plan had remained in effect, the plan that Obama, that the EPA promulgated, if that had remained in effect, we would have a national carbon market now. Yeah, it is. If the Democrats succeed in, we elect a Democratic president in 2020, 2021, we should have a carbon market within the next year, I believe. RGGI will, frankly, all the lessons learned from RGGI will go into that design. RGGI is an extremely robust and sturdy program, and it has, as I mentioned, it's already stood the test of time for 10 years. It's been very successful. It's been evaluated many times by many different entities, and every time has been found to be very, very successful. So I've no doubt that that what we'll do is transition from these two regional carbon markets that we have, in the Northeast and in California, to a unified national market.
This is Rita Varley. I would like to ask, will the fracked gas industry receive some of the income from RGGI?
No.
Oh.
There's no way that they would receive any income. They're the ones who are paying, because natural gas, the electricity in Pennsylvania is generated more by natural gas than any other source. So if you look at it this way, they're the ones paying the $300 million a year. And the state will take that revenue and invest it in energy efficiency, solar, wind, and other forms of clean energy. So it will be financed. This transition, this is the beauty of RGGI, the transition from fossil fuel to clean energy is financed by the fossil fuel industry through RGGI.
Woohoo.
Don't tell them I said that.
Hey, Liz, like if we forget the coronavirus for now, what do you think is a realistic timeline that this could get implemented in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, let me run to that. Again, I don't want to make you dizzy, but this is the timeline. So the governor signed his executive order in October last year. The Department of Environmental Protection is currently writing the regulations based on the RGGI model rule, which is a set of regulations that each state takes and tweaks a little bit. It customizes the model rule. So that's underway now. They have another meeting coming up in April where they're going to share a lot more content. They're doing a lot of economic modeling, econometric modeling, and other forms of electricity industry modeling to determine all of the scenarios and the impacts. The final regs are due out on July 30th of this year. So in the middle of the summer, there will be public comment and a lot of opportunity for public participation in the fall. And then they have to present it to the Environmental Quality Board. That happens in the fall of 21. The Environmental Quality Board is the body that determines whether it goes forward. But frankly, the governor appoints most of the members of the EQB. So we're confident that that'll move forward. And then we go to implementation in the fall of 21. The coronavirus will not impact this timetable. We have spoken with the DEP staff who are responsible for this, and we don't see any slowdown. So I don't think that, they are working from home, but, and instead of having an in-person hearing in April, it'll probably be a virtual meeting, a virtual hearing, an online event, but I don't see any slowdown. I wish it could be faster, but regulatory processes do take time. So And this is a big change. For Pennsylvania, this is a big change. So the one issue that we're on the lookout for is the Republican legislators have been trying to figure out how to block this. So there are lots of schemes going on, and there has been legislation drafted by them. But frankly, even if it passes, the governor will veto it, and we do not believe that there is sufficient, support to override the veto. So the reason that they have not introduced that legislation, I believe, is because they don't see a path forward to be able to override the governor's veto. So I think now that may change. I'm always tend to be a little too optimistic, but I think that one of the reasons that I wanted to bring this to you all tonight is that we need to be educating Pennsylvanians very broadly that this is so important. RGGI is absolutely critical, and it's not as large a step as many of us would like, but it is a critical step forward, and it's a great start, and we need it. So getting this broadly understood by the public and by stakeholders, by key stakeholders, is really important.
So Liz,
Yes.
this is Ruth Seitz from Harrisburg.
Hi, Ruth.
Hi. I'm wondering what you want us specifically to urge our meetings to do.
Well, on community solar, I'd love, particularly since you're in Harrisburg, I'd love to send you our support letters and have you, if you're willing, circulate those to your members and have them sign them. I've been browbeating our poor Central Philly members for months now, and they've almost all dutifully signed these letters. So we've been mailing off our letters to legislators. It's really very, very important that support come from all across the state, and Harrisburg is a key area. So if you don't mind, I'll send you those letters.
That's great. Yeah.
If you're interested, I'd love to. PAD has developed a marvelous Facebook page, and we're trying to do much more posting of events and opportunities for engagement through the Facebook page. So I can post on that page the next opportunity for public input on RGGI. So you're right there in Harrisburg. All of their meetings, when they are in person, they are held in Harrisburg. So you can go in person. And the last meeting was in February, and the room was packed, absolutely packed. I think they were shocked how many people came. And it was kind of standing room only, and people were spilling out into the hallway, which is great. That's what you want. You want to show them that there's tremendous public support and interest in this issue. I can't tell you how many advisory committees and things like that are stacked. The deck is stacked with fossil fuel companies. So it's very, very important that citizens be represented. That people, all kinds of people come.
Right.
In the next few days, I'll send out those letters for you, Liz. Plus, I will try to send you a link to this program if you want to share it with others, because it's being recorded.
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay.
Sure. Any other questions about either community solar or solar in general? One thing I will say, is that New Jersey has done a great job with solar energy. New Jersey is usually the second leading state on a per capita basis, second or third behind California and Texas. So, many of the policies that we've managed to get in place in Pennsylvania, we have borrowed from New Jersey, to be frank. So we look to New Jersey for leadership in solar energy. And, frankly, now with Governor Murphy, you guys are doing a lot of great work. So you're ahead of Pennsylvania. The only thing we're ahead of you on is carbon emissions. We have more of those than you do.
Thank you so much, Liz. This
you're
is a
welcome.
wonderful presentation.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
I send out information to people via our newsletter. This is put together mostly by Ruth Darlington. And if you know anybody who would like to receive this information, or if you would pass it on, would be much appreciated. So thank you. Our time is up. And is there anything else anybody would like to ask before we close?
Thanks for hosting, Pat.
Oh, my pleasure.
Nothing to ask, but it was exciting to see that we had 27 participants. And it was great, Liz. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay.
Stay safe, everybody.
You too. Good night, everyone.